Hi there, Josh here, welcome to FramesPerSecond. Today we are shooting the Hasselblad X-Pan, and I'll be putting a roll of Acros II through it. Now it's been a while since I've shot Acros II, and given that the Hasselblad, there's also a Fuji version which is pretty much exactly the same, so I would put some Fuji film through it. And yeah, I haven't shot this basically since the Acros II versus Acros 1 video at the start of 2020, so it'd be good to shoot this film again, see what we get, so let's go. Fuji Acros is definitely one of my favorite black and white films, and I do feel like there was an improvement with the new formula, and you're able to get a bit more detail out of the shadows from it as well. But this shot here with the line is definitely one of the reasons I like the widescreen X-Pan framing, because you can kind of get that kind of shot which wouldn't have the same impact if it was just 16:9 or like, you know, standard 35 frame size. And also just with my filmmaking background, I like shooting widescreen when I make films, so it's definitely something I like to do. Like, you get to get this whole environment going rather than just a section like that, even though that's still decent frame. But I do think it can be tricky getting good shots with the widescreen frame, and not every shot here is going to be an amazing widescreen shot. Like this shot in particular, not the biggest fan of, but there is quite a few things you are kind of putting in the frame, and this shot here didn't end up turning out because it was too dark, because yeah, the lens is kind of slow. It is f4, and so you really can't get nighttime or dark shots unless you have really fast film, and Acros being 100 ISO, yeah, it wasn't gonna happen. But I just thought I'd give it a go, and I mean, at least you see that front skeleton because it's got a spotlight above it. And here I just want to play with the shadow, but yeah, I think a closer frame would have looked nice, but I mean, you still got a little bit going on, and maybe this is one of the shots that didn't require widescreen. Maybe just standard frame size would have worked a lot better for that one, to be honest. But that's kind of the fun of using an X-Pan, is trying to get the widescreen frame, but you can also set it to just standard frame size, so it's a very flexible camera. But being that I don't own the X-Pan myself, I just want to shoot widescreen with it, so that's what we did. And you can get shots like this where you have these nice people in the foreground, but then there's a lot more going on in the background, and I think it makes for a nice frame that does kind of remind me of movies a little bit, especially because we were using Fuji Acros, which has good contrast. I mean, I definitely did lose a little bit in the highlights with quite a few of these shots, but there's still great detail and latitude with this film. Like here, the sky's kind of a grey, while other times it could have been blown out. But yeah, I think the contrast adds to this building, just because otherwise it would be a bit flat, and I probably will be a bit flat with HP5, to be honest. But yeah, this shot, I don't really know what I was going for, but yeah, this is a shot that I don't think really required the widescreen frame, but it's a shot I went for. And unfortunately these next two shots, there's quite a bit of reflection in the glass, and this is when a polarizer filter comes in handy, because yeah, you can't really see the subject, which was the focaccia that was being made, and then this chef that was kind of preparing something. And maybe if I stood in front of where the chef was, my shadow would kind of make it more clear, and that could have been a more interesting shot. But it's things like these that you don't really know until you get the film back, how they looked. And yeah, it is tricky shooting with glass in front, because you do get a lot of reflections. Now this shot I kind of like, because you get the reflection in the glass of the tire, and him half in, half out of the shadow, which I think was kind of nice. And then here, good contrast, especially with what people are wearing, really helped with the whites and blacks, which I think made the shot a bit more interesting than it could have been. I mean, it could have been a lot less interesting than it turned out to be. But yeah, it's a great film. It's a film I like a lot. And here we are at Loon, and I got some food. Can I please have the ham and cheese?
One of the ham and cheese.
And one one of the almond as well?
Cool.
So thanks. Yeah, thanks. And yeah, this is just a shot of the people kind of preparing the croissants. And yeah, I mean, if you really want to hear my thoughts on Acros, you can go back to the video where I compared Acros 2 to Acros 1. But here, yeah, I mean, it's a film that's been around for 2-3 years now, and maybe 2.5 years. Yeah, it's a film that I do wish I could shoot more, but it is significantly more expensive than Acros used to be. Acros was like $10 before, now it's like 18, and that's quite a jump. And unfortunately, I just don't shoot black and white as much as color, so there's more expensive color films that I would prefer to spend my money on. But when I can splurge on Acros, I'm always happy with the results. It's great contrast, very fine grain, and I think it is one of the black and white films that I find more interesting than, say, HP5 or T-Max. Acros and Tri-X are my boys. And if you haven't given it a go, maybe just once splurge. Maybe pricey, but I think a lot of the time the results are worth it. I just don't shoot black and white as much as color, and so I just don't find myself getting it as much as I would like to. And unfortunately, I also recently used my last roll of old Acros that I used to have. So yeah, I need to get some more at some point, but also I need to stop spending money. So film life, guys. And here, yeah, you can see from the kid there's a bit of motion going on, and I was trying to catch the action. But this shot didn't turn out as interesting because all you have is people's backs. But I was just trying to get a moment, and wasn't the best shot of that. And here you get a good idea of the contrasts. There's really deep blacks, nice highlights, but also the greys are pretty solid. Though I do prefer the contrast of Tri-X where there's not as much grey in the middle. The food portion of frames per second has been quite neglected for quite some time, so I thought we'll do a little mini food bit. So just a few weeks ago, famous Melbourne croissant bakery Loon was set up in Brisbane. And so Loon is kind of famous because in 2016 their almond croissant was voted the best in the world, and of course that ranking's changed, I'm pretty sure, but I think it was a New York Times article. But anyway, so we got the ham and gruyere, which is a savory one, and the almond croissant. So I've had these before, they're pretty great. Now this is their world famous almond croissant. But yeah, if I am picking a favorite, out of all the Loon croissants I've tried quite a few. The ham and gruyere is definitely my favorite, and I highly recommend it. So that's all the time we have for today. Please let me know your thoughts on the film, and the camera, and the images in the comments below, and tell me which ones are your favorite. And please like and subscribe, turn on post notifications to know when there's a new episode. Anyway, I'm Josh, this has been Frames Per Second. Just get out there, shoot some film.